And here we go. Continuing, this would be what, episode number 4. This dried, it's basically just an hour or two later. Okay, let's see. At this point in time, now that we're dry, I usually will thread this puppy through. And I make sure again, 8 inches. This will end up going here. So how these things get riveted is interesting. Everyone does them very differently, in different fashions. So this is how it is going to end up going, with cut holes here. So, all right. This is where it gets fun. So obviously you want to pull this thing forward, and you want this hole to be far enough back to where it will move back. If I twisted this farther forward, this buckle wouldn't be able to move very far. So that hole placement is actually quite important. This may be hard to see. I have to do it this way, so I don't completely mar the surface of cuff, and this has to hang off. So what I do usually is I'll do one hole right here behind the buckle, slide this on, and in between this rivet, this will go, and then there'll be 2 rivets on the end of the strap underneath. So you'll have 3 rivets essentially holding this and this buckle on. So this first one will go right here. Normally I do it on this, but when I've got the raw side, the raw side on this, but with this I usually do it on, this is the Poundo board. So, all right. You like my little anvil? It is probably one of the most useful things I have in this room. Just out of curiosity, I'll show you. It's here somewhere. Basically, when you get a couple different types of, here's one. When you order, get rivets, or you get a rivet set, stuff like this, instead of an anvil, what they do is they give you something similar to this. It's, it's metal. It's meant to be essentially a portable anvil, little itty bitty anvil, so I could sit there and pound onto it, a rivet on top of this instead of this. But I find it not as useful. I like this. It's heavier. Sometimes I use it as a brick. Sometimes I use it. What's my one thinking? Oh, and the other thing I like is it's elevated. It has holes to where you can mount it, but I don't like doing that because it moves. I like moving it around. So just a little. When you hit these rivets, you generally only need to hit it like 2 times. Anything more and it's overkill. Alright, now let's slide this puppy on. Alright, this is where people argue a little bit as to design, flexibility, stuff like that. I tend to build my stuff to where their natural state is in a curve. Why? It's meant to be in a curve. It's on your wrist. So when it's sitting flat, it's usually not as comfortable. So I tend to build things with a curve in them. People will argue points. That's different, and that's why I'm also using this off the edge again. And you'll see me doing this through this build process quite a bit. Thought I'd just tell you. I've got black rivets, silver rivets, the gold brass rivets. The big, the medium, the small, and I actually have a ultra small, but I think it's in another container. Same thing with all of the rest. It just depends on the thickness of the leather, what rivet you use. When I started this early on, I was using rivets that were way too big. And what happens is you get a rivet that's too big, and if you're only using this much leather, they travel laterally. So you get a head, here's one head, here's another, and it moves like this. And it causes it to not be as structurally sound because they moved laterally. Only time I ever use these big ones is when I'm going through like 3 different layers of leather, maybe even 4. Alright, so here we go. You've got your buckle, strap keeper. I'll go ahead and do the other one real quick. Yeah, that whole rivet thing killed me when I first started. Couldn't figure out why my rivets, the rivet caps, kept coming off. Couldn't figure it out. Then I started doing a little searching online and the wonderful stuff, and then I purchased some new rivets. Part of it, you know, I was like thinking that maybe I had some bad rivets. And then when I did that, I realized I was using rivets way too big for the thickness. Essentially, a rivet peg should barely come out the other end. Again, it's one of those little things that I just learned through trial and error, and figured it out the hard way. Rivets fascinate me. How strong and how weak they can be at the same time. Alright, we're done with the ends. All right. said, I tend to turn it. There you go. All right. What I'm going to do now, I'm not going to continue this one just yet. I'm going to finish this one up so you can see it. All right. Well, the customer said six to 7 inches. So, and add a little bit, so it's closer to 7. So I'll use the 3/4 inch. Did mark it. 6 to 7 inch. So I'm going to put one here, and put one at the 7-inch mark, and then I usually do about 1/2 inch. That'll be the narrowest one. And then I'll do another one. Like I said, I should have done this when it wasn't together. It's easier. Granted, it's sometimes easier to do it when it's being put together. It just adds more time to it. Alright, so we now have basically 6, 7, 8. It's a little stiff just because it's new. It's perfectly usable now, but as I said before, I will patch those holes up. And we'll do the next one. I always like to match the distance here. Where the first holes go. Well, you've basically seen me make a pair of cuffs now. On smaller pair of cuffs, it's not as important as a larger pair of cuffs. I'll show you something I do typically on a larger pair of cuffs. Like ankle cuffs, for instance, or thigh cuffs. Of course, thigh cuffs are almost more like a collar than they are a cuff. There's something called what is it? Coning. So let's say you put this on. I've only got 4 rivets holding this top strap to this bottom strap. Now on a smaller cuff, it's not as much an issue, but on a larger cuff, what's happening is this is coning, is when you have the pieces separating out from underneath the top strap. So what I typically do on something just a little bit larger than this, what I'll do is these rivets right here will actually be using probably the larger rivet. They will go through this strap as well. So this one all the way up to here is attached to this bottom. The only piece that's not is when you start getting into the strap with the holes. So just a little thing I've learned. Like I said, on the smaller ones, it's not as much of an issue. Some may argue the point, some may not. Like I said, it's much more of an issue when these strap lengths get longer and longer and longer. They need something else to grab onto because stuff starts moving laterally. Typically, whenever I put these rivets on, I pull on them, make sure that they're not really moving. That looks good. These things are roughly the same space, same spot. Alright, these are done. The only thing I need to do is put that edge paint inside the little holes. I'll do that for you. Just in case. Can't seem to do anything right today. There we go. The cuffs are done. That will dry, and we'll be good to go. Hope you enjoyed it.